Hello and welcome. This is a recorded demonstration of the CATF Monday Platform Workspace Organization Template Introduction and Introduction to Permissions Basics and Organizational Standards and Best Practices. So we'll dive right in. Ideally, you'll have already watched the Monday Platform Basics video on the Monday Resources board. That should have given you a nice introduction to navigating Monday.com, where to find information that is applicable to you, navigating workspaces, dashboards, boards, and having that introduction to automations as well. This video is meant to build upon that introduction to provide more CATF organizational specifics as it relates to how the workspace and the platform has been customized for the organization's use. So we're going to dive right in and we're going to go right to the home page. This is what you'll see anytime you first log into the platform. The first thing that you will want to do is navigate to your workspaces or workspace, depending on if you're only working in one area. The primary workspace for the organization, this will be a place that everyone has access to go, is going to be the CATF main workspace. This is going to be divided by some organization-wide dashboards. Some may not have access for everyone, but this is where they're going to be housed as a central location. This is the resources folder, which is going to be a great place for you to go and watch any training resources. This basic training board contains Monday native functionality for different training resources, videos to watch, demos, webinars, different procedural documents, ways that you can update your profile, for example, different tasks and instructions. The OBO Resources Board is going to be a curated resource for you to refer to. This is going to provide, for example, the Monday.com basic platform demo, which you ideally will have watched already to give you that basic introduction. We'll be adding more resources here as our engagement continues. So this video that you're watching will be able to be found here as well. We'll also have a space here to share some example boards that all staff can refer to as they get ideas in creating their own project boards and executing their own initiatives. The other most important piece that you will find here in the CATF main workspace is going to be this folder for templates. The two templates that you see here right now, the high-level tracking board template and the project template, are going to be the two introductory kind of universal templates that have been created for the organization. These are going to give you your baseline columns, essentially, that should help you build out the tracking and reporting and project execution boards for your team. While you can always find them here in the CATF main workspace, from your own team board, you'll be able to add a board from one of these templates at any time by clicking on the plus sign, selecting Choose from Templates, clicking on Templates created in your account, and navigating to the template that you need. In terms of workspaces, you can click on, once again, this drop-down menu up by the name of the workspace. You can browse all workspaces. This top section will house all of the workspaces that you are a member of so that you can easily navigate to whatever workspace you need. Or you can also see all of the other workspaces that you are not a member of or subscribed to in this lower section titled Other Workspaces. The other way you can navigate around to different workspaces and team sections of the Monday platform is to click on the caret next to the name of the workspace you're located in and scrolling through the list of your workspaces. This won't allow you to see the workspaces you're not a member of, so this is a great way to navigate to just those that should have work or projects that you are assigned to. The Monday platform is divided by workspaces, and then within each workspace, as I mentioned, there's going to be folders, dashboards, and boards. So you can navigate this way. We have set up some kind of universal standards, so what you will find in your team workspaces is a layout very similar to this. We'll pull up another one just to see here. So as you can see, this is a skeleton of that universal organization that we have set up. So from a folder organizational standpoint, there's going to be a folder for dashboards, which will be all of your team's reporting, high-level tracking, which will house all of your highest level tracking boards for your projects, for strategic initiatives, for any of the highest level organization and project management that you need to report on. These high-level tracking boards are designed to have universal columns that can roll up into department and organization-wide dashboards for reporting. The next folder that you will see are projects. These will be your execution boards. So the project execution template is going to be a great place to start building your project execution boards. So this can be divided into folders within a folder by project type, by person assigned to own the project, or whatever organization works best for your team and how you operate. The next section is going to be customized templates. This is going to be a great place for you to further customize the universal templates that have already been established for the organization. Those templates are going to hold more or less the baseline data that will need to be reported on. But if there are other metrics or data that your team needs to track internally for either high-level tracking or project execution, you can add those and customize those templates, resave as a new template, and that will allow you to save those here, although they will be available for the whole organization to use as well. The last section here is going to be the archive folder. Now, if you can essentially have your choice, you can either archive a board itself by archiving it, and it will be saved in sort of a mass file or folder storage space within the organization. Or if you still want to have quick access to that, but maybe you don't want to have it kind of filling up space in your high-level tracking or your project board, you can move an item down here to the archive so that it's kind of away and out of sight from the rest of your active projects you're working on. So one thing that you may have heard me mention is organizing within these folders. That's going to be very customizable for each team, for each user. Each folder system has the ability to organize by one more level of folder organization. So essentially you can have one more level of folders within each of these main folders. In order to create that organization, you can hover over the folder you'd like to put a folder into, click on the three dots to the right, hover over Create in Folder, select New Folder. So if you want to have, say, a section of dashboards for, say, quarterly metrics, you can move and folder within this folder and further organize this way. So in practice for that, if we would want to, say, have projects by individual, my name is Christina, we want to have all of the projects that I own, we can drag and drop. Or if we want to create just a new board, this is going to be where you would create a new board, document, or dashboard within this folder, or again within a subfolder. So you can create any number, but as you can see, once you're within a subfolder, just one level below a main folder, you can no longer create any other folders. So this is the extent of organization, so we do want to keep it fairly simple as much as we can. Moving on within these areas here, we are going to, I'll go to our testing workspace to dive a little bit deeper into what some of this looks like in practice. So the best place to start for that is going to be to review the universal templates that have been created. The first being the high-level tracking board template. As I mentioned before, the goal for this high-level tracking board is to give each teams a space, and you can utilize more than one, but a space to track at the very highest level projects, initiatives, goals, anything that you can capture this sort of high-level information for. And I'll review each of these columns as we go. But this could be really any number of things. If you have 15 projects, for example, that your team is managing for the year, you could list all 15 of these projects, but then to actually execute on those projects, that's when you would utilize the project template board and create an execution board for each one of those projects that would be listed here in the high level area. So going across to kind of share some of this information, first off, each board is going to be separated by groups. So you can organize this, again, whichever way makes the most sense for your team, as long as the right information is still being tracked. So this could be sorting initiatives or projects by upcoming or not started, in progress. These could be highlighting different initiatives within a certain work stream or a pillar, and you can divide and organize the board this way. Within each of these groups, though, you're going to have what's referred to as items. These could be your projects, your initiatives, or your goals. So you would name that here within the item name. Moving across the line, there's an area here to put in a brief description of the project or the goal of the project. Here is a way that you can kind of assign and say, even though this is going to be within your team, for the sake of reporting down the line for organization-wide, we'll want to see what team is responsible for that. So you can put in the name of your team, any supporting teams that may be involved in this project. This is a drop-down field, so you can multi-select any of these other teams that may be a part of it. Here you would want to assign a primary owner of this initiative. So that may be, say, the director or the lead for your team. This could be the project manager assigned to oversee the overall execution of an item or a project. And then collaborators is here to assign as many other stakeholders or people are going to be supporting the execution of the item. For type or category, this is going to be fully customizable by team. So this is going to be, if there's a certain type of project or a work stream or an end goal, whether, say for events or an education team, maybe this is where you can differentiate whether a project is associated to a conference or a webinar or a specific type of social media if it's some type of content. This is where you can kind of identify and drill down to what category this item really falls into. There's a column here to establish a priority for the initiative or the project. And then this next column is going to be for the overall status. So once there starts being effort toward this project, that's when you're going to be able to say it's in progress, stuck, on hold, if the initiative was abandoned or realized that it was canceled, if it's overdue or late, and then of course when it's done or completed. The progress tracking column is going to actually track other status columns within this row. So in this case, we have divided out the ability for each project to have phases. Now, this may not be applicable to every team or every high-level tracking scenario, but it is here in case it's needed. So for the sake of this, if there was a project that had, say, a information gathering stage, a development stage, and an implementation stage, or more of these columns could be added. As these are changed, it will update the status here. So say phase 1 is done, you're going to see progress tracking. Since it is linked to these 3 columns, it's going to show that 34% of the project itself is complete. The completion timeline and due date are both ways that you can show the deadline or due date of a project. We have left both in here as a way to show the overall timeline of a project as well as the ultimate due date. And the reason that we have both of them here is because at the end of everything, as these boards roll up into reporting dashboards, each of these columns will have a different role in reporting. They'll have different capabilities. So we do have them both in here so that all of that information can be reflected correctly. The next columns that you'll see here are going to be number columns. So this column here is for budget allocated, budget actual, hours allocated to the project or goal. You'll see hours used here has a green bar under it. That means that it is going to be linked to a project execution board. And that is where, as that time is used and tracked and essentially utilized, that is going to reflect back here so that you have that direct comparison of where are we realistically in the completion of this project? Are we on track? Have we used more hours than we allocated? Did we way underestimate? And that's going to give you that nice visual information here. Additionally, the goal here is to have uniform ways to have all of the files updated, stored, and shared. So it's important to note here that we have SharePoint links in all of these boards, so a column for that. So if you have a specific folder within SharePoint where these project documents or deliverables for a project initiative or goal here, that's where it's going to be stored. That's where the work needs to be done so that there's not a lot of different files, so that data governance is maintained appropriately. There's a place here for you to paste a link to the SharePoint folder or file directly. Now you can put in the SharePoint link here, and then you can choose what text to display. So maybe this is a file, and then you'll see that that's going to display the text, but when you click on it, it's going to hyperlink out right to that file or document. The last column that you'll see here is going to be connected board and project progress. The connected board column is going to allow you to connect a specific item to its related project execution board. So here you'll be able to customize a board by clicking on the 3 dots, customize connect board, and then you'll be able to select the board that you want to link. So if we wanted to say that we're going to pick, say, one of these, just sample dummy boards that we have within the system, you'll see this shows up here. You're going to be able to link all of the items within the board itself. And then this project progress is called a mirror column. So that is going to reflect the completion status of the items we have selected to reflect in this connect boards column. So this is going to say, at a very high level, the status of this project execution board without having to navigate directly to it. We can say, oh, yep, progress is being made. This is great. If you need to see it at a high level, you can click on the linked item right here. And that's going to show you a snapshot into that board itself. Now, on that note, when it comes to project execution, we have created a board for that as well. The goal here being a way to manage your individual project. So these groups and the way that it's organized may be different than the high-level tracking board, where the groups here may be grouping the tasks it takes to execute on that project by the task status, whether they haven't been started yet, or tasks in progress, tasks that are stuck, tasks that are completed, or depending on the timeline of the project, these could be organized into sprints or project phases. It's really up to the individual team or the individual project and what makes the most sense for organizing it. But again, you'll see here there are a lot of columns that you can utilize in the execution of that column for tracking. Now, where the high-level tracking board contains that base reportable data that it will end up rolling up into broader dashboards and reporting, the project templates can be a little bit more flexible for teams in terms of editing. This is a great place to start, but if you truly have a project that maybe is more of just a very brief checklist of things that have to be done every month, for example, you may not need something this broad, and it can be trimmed down and tailored for your needs. But in terms of more of a complex project execution status, this is a great way to go. So you'll see again, we start with a status column. So that's going to mark whether or not the item itself has been started, stuck, is something for the future, is on hold, or is done. The sub-item status, you'll see if you have some smaller tasks that by executing will complete the main task above, the status of the subtasks you add will roll up to reflect in the main item. So if we were to say this is working on it, you can see there's just the one subtask and it's working on it. When it's done, it's done. This will also allow you to get more granular in terms of who is responsible for completing any number of tasks to execute on a project. So this is a little bit different than what we see as the owner in the high-level tracking board, where that's overall the person responsible for the project. Here in this project template, you can get much more granular about who is responsible for what. Same thing with support. These are going to be people columns that you can use to assign ownership and support or collaboration on any tasks that are needed. The due date is left here as, again, the due date that each task needs to be completed by. This, you'll see, doesn't have the completion timeline column by default. However, for any team that thinks that that would be necessary, where they would like to see that start and stop range for each task, that can certainly be added. The next column that you'll see is a dependency column. So what this allows you to do is to identify a task that has to be complete before it's able to be started. So for example, if this task number 2, as we'll call it, cannot even be started, more of a waterfall organization, if it cannot be started until task 1 is complete, we'd want to just identify that. So say task 2 cannot be complete until this task is done. That's going to give us an opportunity to make sure that we can set up automations and notifications so that when this status is marked as done, that's going to notify and alert the person assigned to task 2 that their task is able to be worked on now. If the status was not done, then this task would not need to be started yet, and we could set up automations to make sure that there are ways to alert these people when their task is ready to start work. The next tasks that you'll see here are going to be planned and actual effort. This is going to be the field that ties back to the high-level tracking board where we had the hours used. This is going to tie back to these columns here for planned and actual effort. So the planned effort is going to be just an estimate that you can use just in terms of helping to track bandwidth. where actual effort can be filled out after the task is complete, saying this is how long it actually took to do this. And that's going to be what filters back to that high-level board that's associated to say, this is what has been done. This is the time that has been used thus far. Again, this SharePoint link you can see is a way for you to directly share a link to a file or a deliverable if there is one associated to the task. And then the completion date is going to be auto-filled by the status here of the item changing to done. So again, a lot of this can be very customized. In terms of these universal templates, they are, again, sort of that baseline. The project template can be a bit more customized than the high-level tracking board, but both are designed to give that solid baseline that individual teams can build off of. So OBO is going to be available to assist in that customization process. One thing to note is that in both of these boards, you'll see there are not a lot of automations set at this time, and that again is by design so that each team can fully customize set automations that work for their team and the way that they operate. The next item to note is that these tracking boards, so you can see I'll show an example here. This is going to be a high-level example of a high-level tracking board. So in this case, we've called this events calendar. So you can see here under upcoming events, we have ABC webinar. Here's a description of it. You can see the lead team is going to be events. You have these different types, priorities, the status, the tracking. In this case, we have added or customized a program name that would work for this use case. Owners, the event date. You can see there are those phased planning stages, budget, hours, and then a connected board to an example project execution board. So you can see from here, here's that ABC conference or webinar, and then each of the tasks with subtasks as needed to execute and complete that conference, from information gathering, planning, execution, to postmortem and reporting, that closeout documentation that may need to happen. So again, very, very customizable. You can see the sub-item status, any dependencies, effort versus actual, completion dates, and all of that. From a base project level within departments, these projects, and any number of them, can be added to a project dashboard. So in this case, we see that this is project execution. So we have connected a project board to this dashboard. And again, these dashboards can be fully customized to pull in any reporting that is needed that can be generated from the data collected within the boards. So in this case, we can see a reflection of the different tasks by their status, the completion level of the project, and then at a high level, the progress and status of the project in an overview type view. As things get rolling, as you are building your dashboards, one thing to keep in mind is that there is currently a limit to 50 dashboards or 50 boards able to be connected to a dashboard. So as you add a dashboard, you can come up here or do it within the folder. In this case, we'll create it in the folder. We want to create a new dashboard. So click on the 3 dots, create in folder, a new dashboard. I'm going to call it example dashboard. We're going to say, we're going to link it to the same thing. So we can select boards upon creation, or later down the line, if you have an established dashboard and you create a new project board that should be connected, you navigate to the dashboard itself, come up here where it shows connected board, click on it, and then search for any board or the new board that you've created that should be connected. From here, this is where we start adding widgets. So you can see we can add different charts, numbers, progress, calendars, Gantt charts, and within the widget center, you can see any number of recommended widgets, ways to stay motivated, quote of the day, text boxes. There are a lot of ways that this can be customized. And again, OBO is here to support that customization and make sure that the data needing to be captured is visualized. So in this case, you can see that the project boards are going to be reflected in this area. Whereas in contrast, we have a high-level tracking board as well, with the goal of attaching the high-level tracking boards rather than project execution boards. So a little bit of a different theme, but the same process. So again, there's going to be a way, this is going to be more for organizational wide reporting. There's going to be a high-level tracking board or a dashboard that exists to connect high-level tracking boards to. So again, you add boards the same way. So we have that overview. So in the future, this is going to list, any number of high-level tracking boards, status reports, number of projects or initiatives by category type, budget reporting, initiatives by team, any number of different ways to report on items. So that's an introduction to how the workspaces are set up. Again, there's going to be dashboard sections, high-level tracking sections for your highest level of monitoring of goals, projects, or initiatives, a project section, which is going to house your project execution board. So any boards that are going to filter or connect up to that high-level tracking to accomplish those high-level goals. A section for templates or customized versions of templates that your team has created for your different use cases. And an archive section if you need to move anything out of the way long-term. So that's sort of an introduction there within the workspaces. Again, if you need to add a new board, you can do so by clicking on this plus sign, choosing from templates to locate one of these universal templates. The other way to accomplish that is within the folder you know that it needs to go into. You can again click on the right, create in folder, and select whatever option suits you. And one question that we have received is common to center around permissions. How do I make sure that the right people see the right things? From a CATF organizational perspective, we have identified certain best practices for permissioning across workspaces, boards, and columns. So from a workspace level, again, that's going to be these larger groups here. From a workspace level, we want to make sure that workspaces are main workspaces or public workspaces unless it's specifically noted that they shouldn't be, because there will be a board within it that contains confidential information. So just to see, you can see on this OBO main testing workspace that the OBO team works out of, you can see this lock on it. That means that it is a private workspace, so only those people that have been invited to join it can see anything inside. If we were to make this a main workspace or an open workspace, which is what is going to be the best case for this organization, you would want to change the workspace type if it isn't already, and make sure that open is selected. This is going to allow anyone in the organization to see the boards that exist within the team or within the workspace. The exceptions to this best practice are going to be those teams that contain confidential information. So HR, finance, accounting. Your leadership team at CATF will be able to identify best if you have questions, whether your workspace should be private or open. Now, within each workspace, there are different board types. There are main boards, there are private boards, and there are shareable boards. The main boards are visible to everyone in your workspace. Private is for working completely privately, so you would be the only one able to see a private board unless you have subscribed or added specific team members to the board itself. And shareable boards are going to be the same as private boards, but with the ability to share and add guests from outside your organization's account. So you can kind of determine which is best. The default for most boards should be main boards so that they have the ability to be rolled up and maintain that visibility for everyone into organizational dashboards and reporting. If someone has access to a dashboard or a report, for example, but they do not have access to all of the boards feeding into the dashboard, they won't be able to see the dashboard at all because Monday will recognize that there's some information in there that that person doesn't have access to. So when you're going through and deciding to create boards, that's just something to keep in mind, is that if it has a purpose in broader reporting, then you're probably going to want to make that a main board or in some way visible. If you identify that it should be private, but it needs to roll into a dashboard, you'll want to make sure that on the board itself, you are subscribing and adding the leadership team or the other identified individuals that need to have access to the board for that transparency, so that again, as they roll up into those dashboards, the people that need to see the reported information can do so. However, within each board, even though a board can be a main board, there are other ways that you can control the visibility of what's contained inside. So even if you do have a main board, but you don't think that everything is necessarily needing to be visible to everyone viewing it, you can control board permissions. So by doing that, you can click on this toggle here at the top of the page on the top right, select board permissions, and that is going to open up this dashboard that you can control what can be viewed, what can be added, edited, and deleted. So one thing to note is that any board owner is not going to be restricted by these permissions. So if there are people that you want to have full edit access indefinitely, you'll want to make sure they are an owner of the board. But for everyone else, you'll want to select whether you want them to be able to view everything on the board, which is fine, or to view only the tasks that are assigned or to the users or created by them in the people column. So by people column, we're referring to the owner and support person columns. So that's going to be an option for you to kind of limit what people can see so that they're only seeing what's directly applicable to them. In terms of editing permissions, you have the option to allow editing access based on a number of things. So you can have folks allowed to edit everything on the board, edit the board's content without changing its structure, only editing items or sub-items that users are assigned to. And for this, you can identify if owner and support folks can edit, or just owner or just support. And again, same thing for sub-items, or if you don't want them editing anything and they should just be able to contribute to the conversation, write updates on items only. And that update section, just as a reminder, is this conversations view here. So the quote bubble with the plus sign is going to open up for that item, the conversation. So you can tag people, you can leave comments, and you can have a conversation here. So those board permissions will sort of limit people's capability to do, just anything they want within your board, so you do maintain that control still. In terms of board owners, you can click up at the top right and view all of the board members. Anyone with the crown that is blue is considered a board owner. So again, if you want someone to be above the permission settings within the board, you can make them an owner here. So that is going to just about cover all of the information we wanted to go over today in this introductory demo video. The last piece in terms of permissions would be looking at columns and seeing the control there, in that depending on, again, the permission settings that you're interested in, you can control any of these columns and its visibility. So if you want to, say, hide a column, you can just restrict column view. You can restrict column edit. So this is going to allow you to either hide the column completely from certain people, or you can restrict the column edit. So this is going to essentially have you set an exceptions list. So this is going to say that the column cannot be edited by anyone except these select users, and you would be allowed to control that completely. So that, again, is just another way that this can be customized. As a reminder, OBO is available to be consulted and offer support and help you identify the best plan of attack for customizing, setting permissions, setting visibility for all of your boards and your specific use cases. So that's going to just about wrap it up here on this demo side. Of course, OBO is always a resource. If you have other questions, you can also reach out to your CATF project team, and we can get those answered for you as well. I hope that this was helpful, and if there are any other questions, we will be working with each team to help address those. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.